Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Lechtich Musar podcast. We continue with the Pele Yoeitz. We're on page 69 in the art scroll. We are day 26 in the Hachzik program. So we spoke we spoke a few days ago before Tisha B'Av about a woman that's in the very unfortunate, difficult situation of an abusive, wicked husband. And we ended off that ultimately this woman should never forget the Koich HaTfilah, never forget that Hashem is always listening, and that can change things around. As the last words we ended off, Ulai yechanan Hashem lo tfilas atas peres la'achtes ba'ala derech tovim. We said that through her tefillah, Hashem hopefully will listen to her prayer and her pleas, and hopefully those will be effective to return her husband to better ways. V'higam hitim semenucha, and they can find blessing and harmony and menucha, and the marriage can become the union, the harmonious union that it was meant to be. And we continue with the idea of tefillah, and not only as it relates to her, but as it relates for her husband's growth, and not only in the case of a husband who's a rasha, but this is really advice, directive for every single marriage, every married woman. Know that included in the love that a woman has for her husband is that she will constantly daven for success in his avodah. For the prayer of a woman is generally more effective than that of a man, since her heart is gentle and more easily led to tears. And if she cries out to Hashem from the depths of her heart, it is certainly that these prayers will bear fruit. The woman has to pray for her husband and children, because when the children and the husband are happy, then ultimately she is happy. Who has more care naturally and love for their wife and children more than her. So we said the mother is the motherboard, the control center. She's on top, triangle. She's davening for her husband, for her children. It goes back up to her, and she's happy. So it's a cycle of tefillah, of happiness that's generated, and bracha. Now the Pele Yoeitz cautions that the power of a wife's prayer must always be kept in mind. Kol kavel dina tizar v'tishamer ha'isha shalilimser dina baila v'shalila olav demois. In light of everything we just said, the fact that a woman's prayers are so powerful, a wife must be extremely careful not to call down the judgment of Hashem upon her husband, and not to cry out to him with tears, asking him to punish her husband, for his misdeeds. Meaning, because they're so powerful, the Pele Yoeitz says, so you have a sword over here. You have a sword to pierce the Shemayim, to access HaKadosh Baruch Hu on the throne of glory. But be careful, because it's not a joke. And if you say something against your husband, anyone, but especially against one husband, if she's not happy with him and she asks for punishment, chas v'shalom, or for Hashem to give out retribution for his averus, it's not pashut at all. What happens? Even though the fault is not hers, and she can end up with an awful person, a terrible person, and we said she has to bear all the whole package, the whole yoke of an abusive husband, and she shouldn't go expose him. And now she's left with her and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but still, she has to be very careful. Because the Gemara in Bava Metzia says, a person must always be wary of verbally wronging his wife, which means to say that it's his fault, and if he's the source of her pain, then it's his achrayus, and she should be able to go to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But she has to be very careful, because since she's so powerful and her tears come easily, the punishment for wronging her will quickly cause retribution to descend even on her husband, because he pained her, and she has to be very careful for this. And additionally, if something is going to befall upon her husband, it's ultimately going to circle back to her. She's going to get the first portion of it. That's a Gemara Numa, because she's his wife, and a wife bears responsibility for a husband. So ultimately, it's going to be harming herself, and she has to be very careful for this. So just to clarify what we just said, the husband has to take responsibility for his actions. As the Gemara in Bava Metzia says, a person always has to be careful even to say the wrong word, and the Gemara talks about tremendous clawless and negative things that happen to a person that makes his wife cry, the Gemara in Gittin. At the same time, the wife, who we spoke about, her tremendous koyach tefillah, even though it's only her and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and she shouldn't go run and expose and speak even to her parents and her siblings about her terrible situation, and she could think, at least let me speak to Hashem and open it up and put everything on the table and ask Hashem to do this and that. She has to be very careful for two reasons. Number one, because her tefillahs are so powerful, and whatever she asks for is likely that Hashem is going to fulfill her request. And number two is because whatever harm does descend on her husband, because she is his wife, is going to end up harming herself. So the whole thing is warped cheshbon. So she has to be very careful. Now we're going to quote a story that happened to drive home the point about how dangerous a woman's tears can be. The toivu l'ra, it's a tremendous power, and she should daven for prosperity and peace and bracha and shalom in her house, but to be very careful because it's a double-edged sword. The Gemara in Ksubis. V'chol am yishmu v'ro mi'mais shulu b'shas. Be'ishes rav playni shayisa mitzapa al bayla sheyava min haderech ve'eichar le'ba. There was a certain Talmid Chacham's wife who was anticipating her husband's arrival from abroad, and he delayed and didn't arrive in a timely manner. She allowed 2 tears to fall in her intense pain and loneliness that she felt due to his absence. And her husband immediately died because of her cries. Despite the fact that they enjoyed a loving relationship, and he did not act badly to her, and did not intend to hurt his wife at all, nevertheless, because of the wife's tears, he passed away. And it would seem to me, to the Pele Yoeitz, that there is occasionally a moment of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's wrath, kaviyachol, that can cause harsh judgments and even a person's death as the result for a seemingly small infraction. And therefore let the sons of man be wary never to cause their wives anguish, and all women should be gripped with trembling, not to shed tears on account of their husbands' wrongdoings. Rather, what should they do? Beg that mercy should be showered upon them from heaven. Not that they should be punished, but Hashem should help them, Hashem should assist them, Hashem should sustain them, should help them get through whatever it is that's harming her in certain situations, in those situations, Rahman al-San, but not to punish him, because those tears, those cries, those pleas, straight through the rakia, straight to Kisei HaKavod. These are some of the upright ways that are proper for a virtuous man and woman to follow, should they merit to do so. All the things we've discussed, a man to his wife, a wife to his man, together, the advice we spoke about. And Yishma Chacham v'Yosef Lekach, and the wise man shall hear this advice and add additional similar strategies based upon his own understanding. Look at the Sefer of Eliyahu Kohen, which is Mistama, a great Mekubal, a great Torah scholar, but if the Pele Yoeitz is quoting him, he was very well versed in Kabbalah. And so they shall do, and even more to treat each other in the manner of good people, each according to their individual character traits, to build a beautiful partnership of a Torah marriage. L'mantia shechina shruya b'neim. What's the point of this all? What's the tachlis? L'mantia shechina shruya b'neim b'yos shalom b'aleim. So that the Shechina will descend to dwell along with them, because peace is found in their home. And now the Pele Yoeitz concludes with some practical advice for parents. The obligation is incumbent upon the mother and father of the girl to advise her of these concepts before and after her marriage, that she should do these things that we've discussed and act in such a manner, which is basically that she should be careful of her husband's honor and never shame him before others, and correct him gently, and pray, daven, beg for his welfare. She should also be taught by her parents to tremendously be mechabed her in-laws, her brother-in-laws, sister-in-laws, cousins, spouses, everybody. The chvoid Hashem. Why is this all? Why? Not just from an ethical perspective, not just to be nice, not just to stay away from fights, but for the more so, leman l'chvoid Hashem. It's all for the glory and the sake of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because the HaKadosh Baruch Hu mandated, HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded us to be extremely careful with the honor of her husband. V'chol ma shetichabed es kroivei baila havidas niach rucha le'bailev timsa chen be'enav. And aside from the honor that she shows her husband in this way, this will automatically make her grow in a relationship even more by doing so, with being mechabed all of the family, because with whatever honor she shows her husband's relatives, she pleases him and finds favor in his eyes. So it's not just because of honoring Hashem, even though it's difficult and doesn't make sense to her. Why should she care about her husband, second cousins, whatever, her great-great-uncle? Would it make a difference? No, the answer is it does make a difference, because when the husband sees that, that endears her more towards him, and then that strengthens the dveikus, the bond between them. And she should always have in mind that this is a mitzvah, the mitzvah of caring and being mechaber her husband. And we already said it many times, one does not need to be adjured to be one who loves peace and one who pursues peace, unless he is one from whom peace seems to be fleeing. And he has many reasons to promote quarrel and strife. It is upon him specifically that this mitzvah rests, to pursue that peace in the honor of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And on the topic of marriage, we close with one final caution for women. Even though a wife should treat her husband's family with respect, she must be careful not to act frivolously, not to converse or joke or fool around excessively, and certainly not to engage in any immodest form of companionship with her husband's relatives. Rather, in her father-in-law's house, she should be dignified and modest inside and out. And take every precaution not to cause anyone to sin through improper behavior. Because for the transgression such as these, women can die early, before their allotted time, or give birth to wicked children, or perhaps another thing that can happen is she can have sons or daughters who will die when they're young. But those who are vigilant, those who are scrupulous in this area, in these laws of tznius, and be mechabed, and walking around in a dignified way, then what? Zoichim lezera anashim ksherim. They will merit prominent offspring, ukedoshim, that are righteous and holy, v'yagiu lias yeshishim semechim ve'esasim, and they will reach old age happy and content. With this, we conclude the sugya, the parak of Shalom Bayis and of Ahavas, Baila le'ishtoi and Ishtoi le'baila. And we will all be zeiche to find our zivugim, and for those that have, we should be zeiche to reach the highest level of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants of a Torah marriage, and meritorious, virtuous children of Banim Scharim, Banan Tamidei Chachamim, and the words of the Pele Yoeitz, Lezera Anoshim Ksherim Ukdoishim Yisemechim Yeshishim Visasim, children that are righteous, that reach old age happy and content. Ultimately, all to bring Kadosh Baruch Hu nachas, happiness, and to fulfill our tafkid in this world. Oisei nachas ruach liyatzenu.